After last night's win against the Cavaliers, it appears as though the Raptors just might be starting to turn their season around, and if that's the case, more help could be on the way through a trade, and in this case, in a very big way, as Zach Lavine appears to be unhappy with the situation currently in Chicago. So in today's video, we're going to discuss if it's possible for Masai Ujiri to bring the star player to Toronto and what that trade might look like. Let's get into it. What's going on, NBA and Raptors fans? It's Jacob here, back with Amateur Hour Sports, your source for the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news. We do videos like this and also live stream watch parties for every single Raptors game. So if you like what you see from today's video, then make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Help me on my road to now 14,000 subscribers. And if you find yourself enjoying this video along the way, be sure to drop a like to give that extra bit of support to the channel. But the video today is going to be all about Zach Lavine. Rumors are spreading around the league that the player, after just re-signing with the team, is unhappy with the situation currently going on in Chicago. And if I was a player as good as Zach Lavine playing in Chicago, respectfully, I would also be unhappy with the situation going on in Chicago because the team is going nowhere this season. They are not good enough to make the playoffs, it seems, and they are too good to actually get any sort of quality draft pick. Now, the situation for Chicago is very different to Toronto because Toronto, coming into this season, really banked on the youth and inside development to get the team to the next level. Maybe so far that just hasn't quite materialized, but Chicago, well, they've made their win now sort of trade. They lost picks and they lost a good player in Wendell Carter Jr. to bring in Nikola Vucevic a couple of years ago, and that is just not working out there. They don't have the assets to bring in that superstar sort of player. They just have not built correctly around the players that they have at their disposal. The way DeRozan has been playing, the way they've had Zach Lavine playing in the past, it really just has not worked out for Chicago, and it is very much time for a fire sale and a complete overhaul of this team. Now, what's good about the Bulls, despite the fact that they've lost some of their draft capital, they can get it back by moving on from the players that are on contract. Vucevic is going to be difficult to trade, but Lavine might be a player that is a little bit easier to trade, and a team that could have interest in Zach Lavine's services is, of course, the Toronto Raptors. This season, we don't really know quite yet what we're going to get out of the Raptors. They went on that 6-game losing streak, but since then, they ended the Knicks' 8-game win streak, a good Knicks team that they beat off the back of the 52-point performance from Pascal Siakam. And last night, they put on an offensive clinic against the statistically best defense in the NBA in the Cleveland Cavaliers. So there's certainly potential, and this team certainly is good if they can put everything together. And if they continue to kind of build and get themselves motivated off of these two big wins, maybe they can get themselves back into a decent playoff position in the Eastern Conference and really put pressure on their front office to make a trade to bring in more talent to the team. Now, I have been very vocal about the fact that I think Jakob Poeltl solves a ton of problems with this team, and you'd only have to give up likely one first-round pick in order to get him. You have to give away two, then I'm not making that trade. But for one, that's something I would do. But I've always said the Raptors, a team who have very tradable contracts and all of their draft capital at their disposal, they have the ability to strike and make a big trade if the opportunity presents itself, if there is a disgruntled star on a different team. And right now, it appears as though we have a disgruntled star on a different team in Zach Lavine in the shooting guard position. Definitely a spot where the Raptors can seek some big improvement, and Zach Lavine could be exactly that. If you go back to my previous video on this channel, it was about Pascal Siakam's 52-point performance, but it was also about, can Siakam be the number one guy on this team? And I said, well, he might not be the ultimate top 10 player in the NBA that is the serious number one option on an NBA championship contender, but there are very few of those in the league that you just can't really get. So maybe the best course of action is to build around Siakam, but find him the co-star that can really allow him to blossom and also have somebody who can blossom next to him in a different sort of role. Zach Lavine, a completely different player to Siakam, could just be exactly that, and the Raptors are in a position where they can make this trade possible if the Bulls decide, and they should make this decision, if the Bulls decide that it's going to be a real rebuild process for this organization. Zach Lavine is a player that I would love to have on this team. There are going to be some weaknesses about trading for him, but Lavine has all NBA ability in terms of his scoring, is a great scorer. He's only 27 years old. Like, he's in the midst of his prime at the moment here. And the contract that he is on, it's expensive. However, this is a contract that is going to take him through the prime years of his career, and you have complete contract control over this player. In terms of the ability, again, the scoring here is maybe just what the Raptors need for their playoff expenditures. For the regular season, he's a great player, and he has been for a number of years now. For the postseason, adding in a shot creator who can find himself his own shot in a mid-range setting, in a half-court setting as well, this is just something the Raptors don't have in their team, and it's just something that could be missing from this team. There are, again, the contract concerns, but listen to the contract here. I've heard people say that this is a contract that could be a problem for the Raptors to take on, but looking at it from this season, including this year, he's got 5 years on his deal. This year, he's going to be making $37 million. Next year, 40. The following year, 43. Then 46. And then the final year, 2026, 2027, he's making just under $49 million on a player option. Now, that seems like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. That's $215 million over the next 5 years, including this full season, because we're going to do that for salary balancing purposes. That could be a lot of money, yes, but the salary cap is going to steadily increase. We're expecting a big jump to come very, very soon. And this is a player that you have locked into this contract throughout his entire prime. You're going to have him from 27 to 31 years old, into his early 30s here, where you can make a different decision about what you want to do with the player if he is still on your team, if you do go and make that trade. I am fully comfortable having that contract on the books. It's a lot of money, but if you want to have a star player on your team, you got to pay up. The cap is going to go up. This contract, I think, is going to look a lot better over time, and just the prospect of having the full control over this player throughout his entire prime in his career, it just seems like a great opportunity for the Raptors to go and pursue. There's going to be question marks around the defense that he has for this team and what he can bring for this team if he does come to the Raptors through a trade. We'll discuss in a moment what that trade might look like, but there's so many good defenders around him. There's so many good athletic players around him that if you can keep OG, Siakam, and even put Fred VanVleet next to that, those are good defenders who can help him in that setting. And I don't think that it's going to be a detriment to this team. So what would the trade look like for Zach Lavine? It's a little bit of a down year for the player, number one. He's down to 21.7 points per game, just under 22 points per game here. You'd be hard-pressed to convince me that at 27 years old, we've already seen the best of Zach Lavine. Like I said, he's going into the prime years of his career. We've seen him average 27 before. That's a couple of years ago now. Last year was in the 24 range. But again, at his age, it's a difficult situation right now for him to be in. Maybe he's not the most checked-in player right now. Again, you do some convincing to tell me that we're not going to see Zach Lavine rise up and get to the mid-20s in points per game again in his career. So, at this point, though, if a player wants out, that does decrease a little bit of his value. And the Raptors, for the salary matching side of things, can offer the Bulls nothing that is, world-changing for them. Gary Trent Jr. could be a player that goes to the Bulls along with salary filler like, let's say, Chris Boucher, maybe Kem Birch and some other assets, or instead of Kem Birch, maybe add in Thaddeus Young. The salary side of it works here. Gary Trent is the biggest piece that goes over there, though he is a free agent at the end of the season because he's likely or either already has turned down the $18 million player option that he has. Nothing is groundbreaking there for the Chicago Bulls, and the Raptors are not going to be offering up OG or Siakam to make this happen. VanVleet could go instead of Trent, sure, but that doesn't really make sense from a Raptors perspective, though. If VanVleet does go, maybe you can look at getting Caruso back instead to add in a point guard defender. Regardless, I don't think the salary is going to be important here because nothing is overly enticing from a salary perspective for the Chicago Bulls. What will be enticing is potentially the picks that are involved in this discussion. So, how many picks would it take for the Raptors to get Zach Lavine? I think Bulls fans would have you believe that it's probably around like 4 first-round picks. I think 3 is more in the range. I am more than comfortable giving 2 unprotected first-round picks to get Zach Lavine. Again, I don't see the contract as a negative. I see it as a positive. The way the salary cap is going to be going, the fact that you have him on control for the rest of this season and 4 more years in his prime, that seems like a prime opportunity for the Raptors to add in a co-star to play next to Pascal Siakam. I think that'd be a big difference next season, and the ability to just build around these two guys going forward, I think is a great prospect for the Raptors to make. It will just be about that value. 3 first-round picks for Zach Lavine. I'm not sure if I'm going to go as far as that in order to make it happen. That just seems like a little bit too much for a guy that just isn't quite that top tier superstar that you want to add to your team to get your team to the next level. 2, I'm more than okay with, but I struggle to see the Chicago Bulls selling for that, given the fact that they do have, again, the contract control over this player for an extended period of time. So Zach Lavine, in terms of the fit, it's not a perfect fit here, but I think it's a good fit for the Raptors. I think it's a great fit for the Raptors. Offensively, I think he unlocks a ton of things. Defensively, I don't think he's a complete and utter detriment to your team. I think the offensive parts of his game make up for that. People have been saying that maybe Zach Lavine is on the decline for his career at 27. I really just can't see that happening. I think this is a good potential move for the Raptors to make, and I think this is one where Masai Ujiri needs to be making a couple of phone calls and asking around to see what sort of value the Bulls want for the player. 3 first-round picks, I don't think it completely scares me off. 2, no-brainer in my opinion, but we'll see what Masai Ujiri comes up with. We'll see what the Chicago Bulls come up with. But what do you guys think? Should the Raptors go ahead and try to make a trade here for Lavine? Do you think it's a good fit, or should we stay away from this one and go for somebody else like Jakob Poeltl, or maybe even make no trade this season? Let me hear your thoughts and opinions down below, because that is it for me for today. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please drop a like if you did enjoy. It does go a long way to supporting the channel, and make sure you're subscribed to Amateur Sports for videos like this and live stream watch parties for every single Raptors game. Merry Christmas to those who celebrate, happy holidays to those that don't, and I'll see you again next time for another video or another stream.